Shabbat Shalom. I will admit that, and I think I wrote about this in the pray bill for the show that we have our final weekend of this evening. Make sure that you all come to Guys and Dolls. That when I first heard that Guys and Dolls was the show that the synagogue was going to be putting on, I sort of thought to myself, like, yeah, gambling and vice and, that's what we want in the synagogue. Great. And even felt more awkward when during the show last weekend, a friend of mine's daughter sort of looked up and said, what's a doll? Like, where are all the toys in this show? I was promised dolls, and we had to, explain the pejorative word women and vase mirror. But there was a tikkun, a fix on that just this morning, that my daughter and I were playing with her dolls this morning, and she was humming. I got the horse right here because it's been sung in our house quite a bit over the last little bit. And she said, "What are you playing, Sage?" And she said, "Oh, I'm playing Guys and Princesses." And I thought that's a way to give some power to the women in this. And I've been thinking a lot about it and actually did a little bit of research into Guys and Dolls and where it came from. And it was based on some short stories that were not written by Jews, but the show itself was written by three Jews, Frank Lesser, Joe Swirling, and Abe Burrows. Lesser was a German immigrant whose family had tried to escape persecution in Germany. Swirling was from Ukraine, same story. And Burroughs, the only native-born New Yorker in the group, was the child of immigrants himself. And it sort of paints Guys and Dolls in a bit of a different light when we think about it as a story written by immigrants who find themselves in New York, which in that time could have probably been quite a scary place to be, right? And so what do? They write a farce where, no, these gamblers, these people running around, they're not scary. They're, just no goodniks who are trying to have fun and falling in love. And one of them quotes the Bible left and right? And they turn it into something a little bit happier. Right? The police officer who, could have been someone that the Jewish immigrants in New York is not part of our culture, not part of our thing. He's a comedian. He's part of the comedic effect, right? And the missionaries trying to convert us, but they're actually just lovable people who sing sweet songs to one another. And you can actually see in Guys and Dolls trying to make this scary world that these Jewish immigrants have found them into one of love and laughter and fun. And in writing this show, Lesser and Swirling and Burroughs are actually stepping into a hundreds of year old Jewish tradition. And it's a tradition centered around the holiday that we're going to celebrate in the month to come. Because as it's Rosh Chodesh Adar, and we have Purim coming up, and part of Purim is, of course, the Purim Spiel, a play that we put on. And these Purim Spiels go back. Now, for Jewish ritual, they're not so old, right? They're like 15th century. That's pretty new as far as Jews go. But from the 1400s on, we have examples of these plays that the Jewish people would put on around Purim. And we don't know a lot about them. We don't have, scripts and set lists of what they were like. We know that they involved people of all strata of socioeconomic class in the Jewish community. And we also know that they often poked fun at the leadership of the Jewish community. I know it's something we would never do here. And at the leadership and the non-Jewish world around them. And so for hundreds of years, a staple of these Purim plays is the satire and parody of the world around them. I think much the same way that Guys and Dolls is trying to make a scary world fun. That's what the Jews of the diaspora in the Middle Ages and on were doing as well. Right? Our rabbis are too stuffy, let's bring them down a peg. Right? The world around us is, again, not your rabbis, but other people's rabbis. The world around us seems scary. The non-Jews are not nice to us. We're going to make fun of them, and they're never going to know because we're going to use it in a different language, and it's going to be hilarious. Right? That's a tradition that our people have used from time on and time on to try to express both our uncertainty about the world around us, but also a little bit of our hope for what the world could be. A world where people are more laughable, more lovable, more approachable, more jokeable. And in this, we see something that we all need right now. The ability to, as we say, Misha nichnas adar marbim b'simcha, right? When we enter into Adar, we're supposed to increase in our joy. And in this phrase, because that's what we're doing right now in Rosh Chodesh Adar, the rabbis themselves are actually doing like my daughter and guys and princesses, they're doing a tikkun on the Mishnah. Because the Mishnah says, Misha nichnas av, right, from when you enter the month of Av, ma'atin b'simcha, reduce your joy, full stop. And then it moves on. So the Mishnah tells us that in the month of Av, you should reduce your joy to continue Rabbi Schwartzman's quizzo. Why is Av a month where we reduce our joy? Because it's got Tisha B'Av in it. That's right. Hershey's Kisses all around. And then in the Talmud, the rabbis add, oh, and by the way, Misha Nichnas Adar, Marbim B'Simcha. Because the Mishnah sets up a world where all we're doing every year is lessening our joy. Every year, just a little bit less, and a little bit less, and a little bit less. And so the rabbis add, oh, in Adar, you put it back, right? In Adar, you set it back up to happy, and then the cycle stays more balanced. And Adar is the month we do that, and we do that with joy. We do that with songs. We do that with Megillah. We do that with giving gifts to the poor. We do that with giving gifts to each other. And we do it by putting on plays. And by making fun of each other a little bit, by making fun of the powers that be a little bit, by making fun of the world at large a little bit. And that's how we bring joy into our world. And it's also the exact same thing that God asks of us in the Parsha this week. Because the people are in the desert. They're in a space that is uncertain. They're in a space that is unknowable, right? They're in a space of lack of resources. They just got out of slavery. And what does God say that they need to do? We now are about to get chapter upon chapter of cubits of red silk and green silk and all the way that we build the Mishkan and everything that's going to go into it. It's the same thing. If the Guys and Dolls writers are trying to make a scary world seem comic, if the writers of the Purim plays are trying to make a world of diaspora feel powerful, then the creators of the Mishkan are trying to make a chaotic world seem like it has order. Because all of the different joints and pieces and screws and poles and ladders and cloth has a purpose, has to be there, and by the way, it's also beautiful. And we learn in this moment that we have to create things of beauty if we're going to reach God. God could build a Mishkan that is functional. God could build a Mishkan that's just 4 walls and an altar, move on, Shabbat Shalom, here's your sacrifice. But God wants it to be made out of gold and silk and tachash skin, whatever that has. It's got to look good. It has to be beautiful if it's going to represent God here. And so for all of us, as we enter into Adar, an Adar where it might feel like it's a hard one to Marbim B'Simcha, there's a lot of reasons in our world right now to feel like we are going to lessen our joy, or to feel like it is harder to bring joy or comedy or silliness into the world. It might even feel like a weird and odd request from your rabbi on a week like this to say, guys, you've got to go out and create art for each other in this world. And it's one of the beautiful things about the show that I hope you all see tonight and tomorrow is that Guys and Dolls is not just a representation of a farce from yesteryear about how we made a scary time seem more palatable. It's also a group of wonderful congregants, doctors and lawyers and accountants and retired people and really, really young people and everyone, just making art for one another, just trying to entertain each other and do something fun. And that's something we all need in our world right now. So your task as we go into Rosh Chodesh Adar, or we're in Rosh Chodesh Adar, is to marbim b'simcha and to try to create art, however you do it. The rabbis in the Torah say we can't do it alone. We all have to build the Mishkan together. Now, you could write a poem by yourself, and that's fine. If you do, please do. Send it to me. I want to read it. But I would love it more if you got in groups and you made art together in some way. The rabbis in Midrash Tanchuma tell us that not only is creating art something that's important for all of us, it is actually how we continue the project of creation of God. The rabbis imagine a conversation between Rabbi Akiva and Tinus Rufus, whoever he is. And Tinus Rufus says, you rabbis, why would you think that your works, the things that you do, are any good? Just stop already. What's the big deal? And Akiva responds to him, according to the Midrash, God creates the building blocks of life, right? God did the big stuff and made out of nothing the world that we're all in. But we, by creating art and good works, we make it beautiful. We make it worth living. We make it worthy of God. So everyone here has a job that is both silly and incredibly important. In whatever way you can this week, make something beautiful. If it's an email, if it's a song, if it's a video, if it's a drawing, if it's a painting, make something beautiful and share it with someone else. Because that is how we are going to both marbim b'simcha, but also remind ourselves of our ability to create, shape, and make the world around us a better, safer, kinder, and funnier place. Shabbat Shalom.